This is our geography lesson, and it's all about human and physical geography, and then we're going to focus on different landmarks in England and show the different human and physical features of them. So when you think about, what do you think of when you hear the word geography? You might think of things like weather. You might think of different areas of land. You might think of studying rainforests or rivers, or even different towns and cities and the countries and continents they're on. You might think about what a land is used for farming, how many people live in a country, its population, or you maybe even think of different features like volcanoes and things like that. So you may have other things that you think of for geography, but these are some of the things that I know will have come up. Now, as I said at the start, geography is divided into two main areas. You can have human geography and you can have physical geography. So physical geography and human. Now, different examples, you might think, well, which of these? Are they done by humans or is that a physical feature? So weather is physical geography because it's something that is naturally occurring. So are rainforests, so are rivers, so are volcanoes. But towns and cities, farming and population would all be examples of human geography. So human geography relates to human activity or something that has been constructed or humanely constructed. So you think about towns and cities, and you might answer questions like, what's the largest city in Africa, or why is the UK population growing, or why do we experience things like global warming? Now, global warming is an interesting one because that's something that naturally occurs, but is also something that humans have influenced through our actions and our pollution and things like that. Another thing about physical geography is something that's naturally occurring. So it's part of the natural environment and landscapes of our planet. So we might think about volcanoes, rivers, mountains, oceans, all that kind of thing is physical. So we're going to take a little look in this lesson at some aspects of physical and human geography that you might learn about. And then you're going to have an opportunity to look a little bit closer at home and think about, okay, so what is the human and physical geography of England where we live? Because as you know, we're looking at comparing localities. So human geography, remember, relates to human activity, something that is human constructed. So things like settlements where people live, and you might think about different size settlements from the smallest hamlets to the largest cities. You might look at what features are there. So if we did a local study, and you'll probably remember this from year 3, you would have looked at Wroughton and the local area and what homes are there, the schools, the shops, parks and libraries and things like that. You might also think about land use. So not all land is where people live, is it? There might be some, but there also might be lands that's for farming, agricultural, lands that are for recreation, so nice places that people like to go to relax or have leisure time. Areas of transport, so I'm thinking of things like ports or airports, all kinds of things that are taken up by the humans getting from one place to another. And commercial areas, so town centres and areas of business and markets and things like that. Human geography also covers something called economic activity. So the economy relates to how much money a country is making, its wealth, and you'd study that because you may be sort of thinking, well, why are some countries richer than others? And part of that is to do with economic activity, but also it's to do with things like its energy resources. So energy resources is sort of the raw materials, the things that countries have that they can sell. So lots of countries have discovered oil underneath the ground in their country, and that's made their country very rich because oil is a very valuable resource. Now, though, in more modern ages, when we're looking at things like renewable energy, there are places that have a lot of solar power or hydroelectric or geothermal or wind, or all the things, if you remember, we covered in term 1 that make renewable energy. And that's something that you might study as well. You might look at resource distribution. So how different areas use their resources and how it affects how they live. So if people have mines that they dig in their community, so if that makes them jobs, they have coal mines and things like that. If they're a fishing community where they have obviously lots of availability to fish, And it might be that they live in an area that has orchards, or they might be near a vineyard or somewhere where natural resources grow near. And lastly, you might think about climate change and its effect on the planet and how that is a result of human geography. And population, as we know, is obviously how many people live in a certain area, and you can have something called population density, which is how dense, how many people live in a certain place. So the UK is quite a population dense country because we've got lots of people that live on quite a small island, whereas somewhere like Canada is absolutely enormous and there's not as many people living there. So that affects different things, like the resources that the country uses, the amount of land it's got to use, and all these things can be studied. So that's human geography. I'm going to talk briefly about physical geography, and physical geography is things that are naturally occurring. So the most obvious one is things like the weather. Okay, and if we're studying weather, we are studying physical geography. Same as if we're studying climate. Now, weather and climate are different. So weather is what you have, and climate is what you can expect. So climate is a kind of area's average weather. So for example, last weekend it snowed. That was our weather for the day, but you wouldn't say England has a snowy climate because it doesn't snow all the time, does it? And there are different climate zones, and these are really important to study. So if you look at the map of the world here, you've got band in the middle called the equator, which is the hottest part of the world, and then above that the Tropic of Cancer, and below the Tropic of Capricorn. And the areas in between that we would call tropical climates, and they're places with very large kind of biodiversity, because there's lots of different animals that can live there. Things like rainforests and that kind of climate, that kind of biome, which we'll talk about in a moment, are all around those areas. Whereas if you look, as you get further north, it gets colder and colder. So you get some land that's temperate, which is where we live. You see the UK in the middle, and we have what's described as a temperate climate. But then we're not far off being, we're actually quite far north, aren't we? We're not far off being in a polar region, which is a region that's very cold and gets lots of snow and ice and things like that. So this is something else you study, different climates. Heard of ones like the rainforest. You may have heard of the savanna when we were studying that, which is grassland. Or you may think of deserts and things like that. Mountains are a part of physical geography that we can study as well. So we look at how mountains are formed and where they are, as well as rivers. Now, rivers links to human geography because lots of times rivers is where humans made their settlements, because obviously water is a really vital resource for humans to have. So they need to build their settlements around a river or some flowing water. Another part of exciting physical geography will be looking at volcanoes, so how they're formed, where they're located, and different eruptions. And that can also be really, really interesting when that meets sort of human geography and where people have built populations around volcanoes. Water cycle is also physical geography, and that is part of our weather, but also a very vital part for our survival, really. We need the water cycle to have water to drink and to have water for our crops to grow. And natural disasters like earthquakes would be physical geography. So now we had a little look over the difference between different types of human and physical geography. And just remember, human geography is something that is being created by people, by humans. Physical geography is something that happens naturally. So I want you to look through the photos on the next couple of slides I show and think about whether they are human or physical geography. I think it was physical geography, yeah, because you could see the mountains and the river and the forest. It doesn't look like there's lots of things that are man-made there. Let's have a look at the next one. What do you think here? Something very prominent in here, isn't there? Something that doesn't look too natural to me. Yeah, these wind turbines are an example of human geography, because it's how we use the resource, this is must be a very windy part of the planet, to gather electricity. But also, if you look, there's also aspects of physical geography, because in the background you have the mountains, and then it looks in the foreground you have some slightly arid desert land. So it has a bit of both in there, doesn't it? And these things are always related. What about this one here? A bit of both again. It's got a long road, hasn't it, that stretches through. So this is an example of what humans have done to create their transport links. But if you look around, you can see, well, what could you use that land for? Is that something that humans are able to use for agriculture, or is that part of a desert maybe? Oh, look at this one. This one looks to me to be very dramatic. Human or physical? What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. I would say physical as well. Big, stormy weather, looking at lightning and how it strikes would definitely be an aspect of physical. And this one here, look. There's a man who looks like a shepherd and he has his sheep. Seems to me to be part of human geography, doesn't it? Because it's got lots of different ways to use the land correctly with agriculture. This last one, beautiful mountain in the background, looks like a rainforest in the front. That's probably physical geography, isn't it? Here's an interesting photo, an aerial photo. So I wonder if you know what country that is. Yep, it's the United States of America, or well, actually there's a bit of Canada in there as well, so it's North America. And those lights there, they look to me to be signs of settlements. And I wonder if you have a look, what side of America does it look like there are lots of settlements on? Is it in the west or is it on the east? You might notice where they're spread out. There are lots on the coastal regions and not so many near the middle. I wonder why that is. Okay, so we've looked at human and physical geography, and now we're going to have a look at the geography of England. Okay, so the country that we all live in, and we know that England is in the UK, and here is a map of England, and I wonder if you could tell me what these different areas that are divided up on here. Well, the top one, the red one, is the northeast, with Yorkshire and Humberside, which is just below it, the East Midlands, East Anglia, the southeast, which is where capital city London is, southwest, which is where we are, we're at the kind of northeast part of the southwest, and then the West Midlands and the northwest. So these are the main regions of England. So this is human geography because this is how we divided up the land and given it these names. These names didn't occur naturally, did they? They were given them by humans. So places in the northeast, Northumberland, Tyne Wear, Durham, Cleveland. You can see lots of parts of Yorkshire, Yorkshire and Humberside. East Midlands, counties of those, East Anglia, the southeast. And if you look at the southwest, you can see Wiltshire there in the southwest, along with Gloucestershire, Somerset, Dorset, Devon and Cornwall. And then we've got the West Midlands and the northwest. And these are where some of the main cities are in England, and I wonder if you know what some of them are. Let's have a look. The one in red is Newcastle, York, Cambridge, London, Canterbury, Bath, Coventry, Birmingham and Liverpool. So these aren't all of the cities in England, there are lots of other different ones, but these are some of them, and the main ones in each region. So you can see Bath is a prominent city in the southwest. Bristol's not on this map, but that is also in the southwest. It's about, I think it's about 30 miles from Bath or so, maybe less. And that's a big city there as well. And you can see lots of others around the England. So here are some landmarks that we've got. There's places like lots of cathedrals. We've got a very rich history in England, and because of that we've got lots of old landmarks, lots of things that have been built in the past. Canterbury Cathedral, as well as many other cathedrals, including Salisbury Cathedral, which is quite close to us, are very prominent landmarks. There's modern things as well. The Angel of the North is a statue that was built in the north of England relatively recently, and that's a very prominent feature up there. We have Stonehenge, another thing that's quite near us. It's human geography because it was made by humans, but it was made thousands of years ago. And engineering works like Clifton Suspension Bridge, built by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, who was a very important engineer, and that's in Bristol, which is very near us as well. The Roman baths, which are, yeah, you guessed it, in Bath, and again, really old, but also human geography, because it was built by humans. Buckingham Palace, and the example on here is Anfield Stadium, which is where Liverpool play, but you could substitute for any better football team if you wanted. We might even put the county ground where Swindon play, would be another landmark in England. And you can see where all these things are on the map here. And if you notice, just with the ones that they chose for this PowerPoint, they're all quite close to where. Now, some physical features. So the River Thames is a really important physical feature. It's in London, well, it runs in London, but it also starts not far from where we are now. It runs through Lechlade, which some of you may have been to, and it goes all the way to London and then out to sea. And that's an important physical feature because it's where the largest settlement in the UK, the largest settlement in England, London, has been built. Same for the River Tyne, which is a river in the north of England, which has been built as a settlement. There's places of interest as well in terms of mountains. So in the parts of the Peak District, we've got places like Scafell Pike, and there are other areas as well like Helvellyn and the Pennines, which are important physical features of England. Interesting things that have been eroded by the weather. So a place called the Needles. You can see that these really striking kind of cliff edge points sticking out, and the English Channel, which is an important sort of bridge between England and the rest of Europe. We've got the very famous iconic White Cliffs of Dover. Some of you may have been there, or may have been to Land's End, or even Poole Harbour, which isn't very far from here, which is a nice huge harbour that ships and pleasure cruises and things like that can go in and out of. So you can see all the physical features on the map here and where they are. And now it's going to be over to you. I know I've spoken for a very long time, and ordinarily I wouldn't speak for 18 minutes or so without any feedback from you, but slightly different at the moment, isn't it? So now you've got all that information. What I'd like you to do is see if you can research an aspect of either human or physical geography in England. So you could, if you wanted to, choose one of the features that we just went through, one of the places. So for argument's sake, you could say, right, I'm going to choose Stonehenge. It's quite close to us. And then what I want you to do is think about, okay, well, what makes your landmark significant or interesting? And then see if you could design a leaflet for a tourist who might want to go there. And you might think in your research, right, well, what would they see? What would make it worth them going? So why would they want to go? And what makes your landmark unique? So you put that together in a leaflet. And here's an example here of a leaflet that's been made for Stonehenge. So you could say, okay, I need a heading, which sort of is prominent, makes someone want to read, perhaps a picture. You could either, if you choose to do it on the computer, or if you choose to do it hand drawn, you could draw a picture, or you could find a picture and copy it into your information. And then you need to do information about the landmark. So from your research, what you found out, and then how people can visit. And obviously with everything, once you've done that, if you upload to Seesaw, we'll have a good look at it, and we'll see what you've done and what you've researched. So hopefully during that we've learnt the difference between human and physical geography, which is an important part of the things that we do in Year 4. It's one of our key skills in geography. We need to know the difference. Hopefully we do now. And then we're going to look at prominent features around our local area, around our country, and then you do some research on them. So look forward to seeing what you do. Thank you for listening so well. Sorry it's been a little bit long, a little bit just me talking, but it was good information that you needed in there, and look forward to seeing what you do. Okay, thank you.